Hello, Jane. How are you?
Hello, Andrew. It's so good to see you, and I'm so excited for the one we're doing today.
Likewise, guys, we have decided we're going to carry on with the theme of sparkling social comedy. Only this time we've moved on from Jane Austen to Oscar Wilde, and we're looking at the 2002 film of The Importance of Being Earnest. So, yeah, wonderful. I personally feel it didn't let Oscar Wilde's original down. I think it's a wonderful adaptation. How did you find it, Jane?
Oh, it's fantastic, and it's that razor sharp wit that he has that's in full display here. And the importance of being earnest was actually, I know it was one of four, I believe, so-called what were they called? Drawing room plays, I think they were called.
Oh yes, yes. Comedy of he did a load of what they call comedy of manners or something, or
Yes,
drawing room
yes,
plays.
on sort of social norms and of the Victorian era yeah, mocking the sort of social norms and in this farcical, satirical kind of way. I know a woman of no importance was one of them as well, and a couple of others. But brilliant in that sort of witty writing. And a lot of his original dialogue is in this film from 2002. And it's a wonderfully funny adaptation. And there are actually moments where you just laugh out loud because it's so well done.
Absolutely. Now I've got to warn you and everyone else right now. I always mess up Oscar Wilde when I quote him. I always get a word or two out of place, but he is such a quotable writer, isn't he? There's just so much in there.
But he is
Um,
he's very wordy. There's a lot of words going on all the time. Instead of, he could have shortened a lot of things down, but it just comes out in these wonderful tirades of lovely words.
Yeah, no, well, I know what you mean, but I love that sort of thing because it's the wonderful age, we're still at the height of the Victorian era, and decades before Dickens was using 50 words when one would have done. And although they'd calmed down a bit by the 1890s, I love that the Victorians spin these beautiful sentences, and maybe they've gone to 20 words where one would do, but it works so nicely, and the flow is just so good.
That is
And
the point. Yeah.
no, I was just going to say, as exalted a personality as Judi Dench even said she loves that kind of thing because she has played. Now, let me get this right.
Yes.
Judi Dench has played Lady Bracknell at least twice, possibly three times, both on the stage and on screen.
Wow.
And she said she's always willing to come back for more. So,
It must be a fantastic role. And I think all of the characters are in their own way because they all have their own little take on well, I suppose the absurdity of social convention and especially around very serious subjects like identity and marriage and respectability, which was, especially in the upper class, very important at that age. But he's totally given them their own little weirdness and takes on that and that double identity kind of thing that you can be two different characters whether you're in the country or in London is absolutely wonderful.
yes, yeah, and it's so. I mean, it's funny. I when I was watching it again, I was thinking about the whole false identity thing. Because if someone did, I don't know if this is just a commentary on how society may have shifted in 130 years or so, but if someone did that sort of thing today, it would be a tiny bit on the creepy side. But the way it's done in the 1890s setting, it's actually quite there's almost a weird kind of innocence to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where I've always thought of Jack Worthing, Jack slash Ernest Worthing, as being a bit like a naughty schoolboy who wants to present this good image to his household and his ward and everyone else. So he needs this excuse to go to the city and have fun, It's just like, oh, my brother, oh, he's overspent again. I better go and sort him out.
It does. And that entire and in a way, Algernon has the other way around because he's going Bunburying, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah, Operation Bunbury, which I've actually borrowed from another book, but yes, yeah, going out Bunburying to see his poor dear friend who, you see what I say about messing up Oscar Wilde quote, but Lady Bracknell's wonderful comment about how he should simply make up his mind whether to live or die. This shilly-shallying is just
Seriously, can't go on, can it?
no, no.
But let's start with her, Andrew, because she's kind of in a way, she's the ultimate gatekeeper of Victorian style and norms and everything around that era. And she's doing it in a wonderfully witty way. She has all the best comments, I think.
She does, yes. And because she's the formidable matron figure, I
Yes,
think she can get away with stuff. She takes a lot of delight, I think, as a character in making others feel just a tiny bit uncomfortable.
yes.
Um, I mean, the interview with Jack Worthing is just wonderful. It's comedy gold. And and do you find that there's a particular magic moment in that interview where you know where the discussion centers on the handbag, where it goes from sublime to ridiculous? It's just like, yes, a well-proportioned handbag with handles, obviously. And, and as the poor guy's floundering, I can see her getting more and more fed up until she just goes, "The line is immaterial. I don't care where it's going."
Victoria, yeah. No, and there's no one who can say a handbag the way she does. It just comes out as if that's the most filthy, disgusting thing she's ever heard of.
Yes, yes. I've seen it on stage a few times, and there's been a whole variety of reactions I've seen from someone who played it a lot like her, very well, just like this contemptuous, disbelieving a handbag, to one who just snapped and went, handbag. And,
You know,
and
it's
I actually jumped in my seat a bit at that one because I was not expecting that. And
oh, it must be so wonderful to play around with not just the characters, also the lines,
Yeah.
You can do so much with it, and that entire, the surface level of sort of what's important and what isn't. That entire to lose one parent might be regarded a misfortune, but to lose both, that's just carelessness, isn't it? And
Yes.
also the entire, does he live in on the right side of, where is it Grosvenor Square? He's like, where is it he's living?
Oh, yes, yes, it's the posh end of London. It's like, oh, yes, the unfashionable
Yes,
side.
the unfair. I knew there was something. I knew there was something.
Yeah, was it Belgravia? Oh, come on, Andrew, you only watched it last night. Oh,
I
don't,
don't know why I got.
don't you ever age, Jane? Memory is the first thing to go
Oh
there.
yeah, true, true. I don't know. I got Mayfair in my head, but that could be totally wrong. But yeah, the unfashionable side. Yeah, knew there was.
Yeah. Yes, and some of the comebacks to that are brilliant. Like, because when she still hasn't heard about the handbag, and she goes, "That can be changed." What, the side or the fashion? It's like,
Oh,
oh,
both,
surely.
both if required. Sure.
Yes.
No, it's fantastic. And you have, all of it is kind of the characters too on this very shallow surface level. Even the conversation around love and marriage and the entire, I couldn't love anyone who isn't called Ernest.
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes, and it was played to perfection, I think, in this film. I will say, I mean, I've not seen her in too much, but Frances
Yeah.
O'Connor played Gwendolyn really well, I thought. And I mean, I don't need to pass comment on Colin Firth. We'll take it as a given that he's amazing, whatever he does. I just loved all those sudden pauses and hesitations. But wait, but let's assume my name was something else. I really don't like it. I think it's a terrible name. Something like Jack.
And I think actually someone like, I remember I hadn't at the time, I watched this the first time, I hadn't seen Rupert Everett in a lot, but he's in a way perfectly cast as Algernon, that posh upper class, slightly camp, sort of. He's in a way that character is, I'm guessing, Oscar Wilde's mouthpiece because he's cynical at the same time as he's charming, uh,
Yeah.
and also takes great pleasure in kind of cheating people a little bit.
Yes, he does, and he's got very very well developed taste. Now, I need to ask more questions of their wardrobe and sets department, but when you look at Algernon's place in the film, everywhere else is wealthy and opulent, but it's
Yeah.
quite of its time. Algernon's he likes the modern music. He's got his piano. When you look at the decor of his apartments, it's very sort of ostentatious. It's an interesting one because I think as the Victorian period was drawing to an end, this creeping concern was beginning to spread among the menfolk that if you liked beautiful things too much, you might be just a little bit of a whoopsie.
Yes.
Whereas, proper men would like things a bit more Spartan or a bit more traditional, rah. So in a way, Algernon actually beautifully fits that sort of stereotype where he's like, you do look at him and go, we've got impeccable taste in art, music, culture, and you have an eye for beautiful things.
Exactly, exactly. No, it's so well done. And it's almost like he has, before he even meets his dear cousin Cecily, he's almost sort of determined to fall in love with her in that kind of shallow romantic. And she's of course very young and have this vision of knights and maidens and what have you.
Yes, I think she's been allowed to look at too many pre-Raphaelites.
Yes, yes. There's a
Yes.
combination of that, but they have some wonderful conversations as well in that very wordy kind of way in her diary that she's already taken notes in, and that, well, we have been engaged for these past whatever 3 months or whatever it is. And of course, it had to be broken off at least once because otherwise it couldn't be a serious engagement.
Yes, yes. No, it is. I've always that bit always makes me laugh. But I do see the very witty touch on just how organized some people's marriages were in this
Yeah.
period, and but it's so beautifully put into the mind of the youngest of the main characters, who I think is supposed to be the most innocent, but yet in some ways she's incredibly innocent but also kind of cynical, and I love how Wilde leaves you guessing about whether she actually is being cynical or whether her innocence has just done the full circle, and it's like, oh, this is how it's going to be.
Because you are in doubt about her a little bit.
Yeah.
How innocent is she? And is that, or is there a cynicism there as well somewhere? Because she's clearly very clever, despite her youth and her innocence and all of that. And he plays off that wonderfully well. There's a wonderful comment where he's acting all distressed and all sort of, but why did you call it off, dear Cecily? Particularly with the weather being so charming.
Yes, picture perfect. And actually, I must say the direction of that film played into that beautifully because
Yes.
it is all picture perfect, isn't
Yes.
it? Even smoggy, coal dust covered London looks amazing.
And you kind of imagine a Victorian kind of dusty, slightly dark grey streets, dirty streets.
Yes, yes, and the social order is so preserved, even everyone looks terribly happy to be where they are. You don't see any of the servants complaining. I know you don't in the play. I think originally the gardener had a couple of lines, but they kind of just pushed him into being a background character in the film.
There is a gardener. You're right. You're right. There is. Yes. You're
Um,
right. And I also like that, in Gwendolyn as a female character, who's of course someone who's been brought up well and into that particular class, but she's also in her own right. Although you get the feeling she is smart, but she's also incredibly self-possessed and sort of obsessed with form over substance, particularly in names. So in a way, she's also a very perfect almost satire of Victorian ideals about femininity and marriage in her own right.
Yes, yes. This is what the ideal female should look like and act like in a relationship. Yes, yes. And there is a certain incongruity because, as you say, she's a very bright character, and so you think, what? You're obviously hugely intelligent, so why? And it does make us laugh, but it also does make us think. No surprise there, it's Oscar Wilde's.
No, exactly, exactly.
I
Oh,
love. Oh, sorry, Jane, go
no,
on.
go on, Andrew, go on.
I love the scene where they've finally been tempted down by some rather risque singing towards the end
Oh,
of the
yes.
play, and they're doing the whole sort of whispering like, we should make them speak first, and then they both just cut in anyway. And then after everything they've said, they've heard these really lame explanations from John and Algernon, and they just go, "Oh no, that sounds pretty honest to me. Yeah, that's."
Possible that.
Wait a minute, weren't you just no? Okay.
And they use sort of those small things like, I always eat muffins when I'm upset, those tiny little,
Oh,
his entire, how upset he is about the fact that there were no cucumbers. So there are no cucumbers for his cucumber sandwiches.
oh
And
yeah.
tiny little things, and you just go, please, perspective here.
Yes. The muffin fight has got to be one of my favorite moments in the entire film when the bowl gets grabbed. Well, I shall not let you consume them all in that greedy manner.
And the girls are sort of looking from a distance, go, they seem to be muffins.
Yes. Yes. This isn't panning out how we thought it would. Yes, but with that entire section, Algernon was right. My dear fellow, women will call each other a great many things before they call each other sister.
Yes, that is true. He has some fantastic lines.
Hmm.
Also, before they get to the countryside in London, he's probably the one who has the most direct, cynical lines, and maybe also the most reflective lines in a way.
Yeah.
And I think probably I imagine Oscar Wilde kind of liking making him in that way and creating that character particularly.
Yes, he passes quite a bit of harsh judgment on marriage, and he does even get briefly told off do you know, I keep hesitating over whether to call him John, Jack, or Ernest.
Mr. Worthing. Yeah. Oh, he ends up being Moncrief, doesn't he?
He does end up being a Moncrief, yes.
Although we're still not quite sure about the Earnest, are we?
No, well, there's that moment where they sort of show that the name in the army list was in fact John, but I think everyone's willing to accept the deception and just go with it. I do like because I don't think it was really in the writing, but I do like that flashback you get from Lady Bracknell where you see behind all the respectability and the concern for maintaining the social order. She was herself a dancing girl at the club and just happened to set her sights on the right person.
Yes, exactly, exactly. That is brilliant. That is a brilliant little moment of clarity, that one. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And I'm guessing also there was and I know probably what he's feeding into Wilde here is the sort of wit of the age, but there must have been, I'm guessing, maybe a slight danger in using your wit to critique social conventions in this way.
Yes, the Wilde's tragedy, from what I've understood, is that everyone found him terribly funny and very edgy in a way that certain people could get away with in that society until he was taken to court over the homosexuality charges. They used a nastier word at the time, but I won't use that one. But yeah, thereafter it would. I don't think he never vanishes from his work never vanishes from the scene, but it becomes easier for a lot more people to hit back at him and get quite angry with, what are you saying about our marvelous society? It's the very thing that's brought us to this pinnacle of success. Rah, 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 rah.
That's so true. No, that was a huge tragedy behind all of that. But I'm guessing also I've been thinking about the use of names and of course that witty play around the name Ernest, but I haven't actually seen that done exactly in that way before in a play from this day and age. I think that's incredibly witty and well done.
Yes, and I personally feel that Oscar scooped it really because he did it so well. I think if anyone tried anything similar, then or today, it would have to be really amazing to not come across as a Oscar Wilde copy and
Yeah.
paste. I think
Yeah.
that's possibly why no one's really tried, at least as far as I know, guys. If you know different,
Yes.
tell us.
Please do, because it's a wonderful the entire sort of also those little even in a romantic setting where he goes, you seem to me to be the visible personification of absolute perfection, and you just, why don't you just tell her she's pretty? Why do and she sort of just she just it just completely sort of falls off her, and she does go, I do like taking down from dictation, so I'll copy it in my diary.
Yes, no, it's yeah, again, it's that wonderful apparent playing to the notions of I suppose classical romance.
Yes,
Well, really,
yes.
yeah, and it's funny to see Algernon just effortlessly come up with these lines when actually you're not really into going by your comments at the beginning of the film. You're not really into any of this stuff at all, are you? But
Oh, that's but oh, you mentioned it a bit yourself, Andrew. I wanted to ask you about because there are a couple of scenes that weren't in Oscar Wilde's original play, but I actually think they make sense in a movie version, and in the entire wonderful tattoo on the behind
yes,
kind of.
ah, yes, Gwendolyn's famous tattoo. Yes.
I was wondering if you look at the entire sort of setting, the music, the costumes, all of it, how do you feel it's sort of complementing the original play here?
I think it is a superb homage to the original. Um, I would venture to say now I've seen the 1950s movie Importance of Being Earnest, and I've seen at least one other, but I can't remember when that one was from. Now all of them have been really excellent portrayals of the play, but I will cause controversy by saying that I think this one is the best
Yeah,
I've ever seen. Um, and I say that because some people have criticized they've been a bit critical of it because they said that some of the teeth were pulled from Oscar Wilde's societal criticism, and that they've made it a bit gentler in terms, it's presented for what it is, but partly because of social inertia, it's such a different society, we sort of don't get the darker sides it was trying to poke fun at. But also because it's just been generally niced up a bit and everyone's happier and there's more, the humor is really fronted. It's always there, but it's really fronted. But I think that actually I regard that as a strength of this effort because not only will Oscar Wilde aficionados see all of the social stuff as you've done, you see all the social criticism, but a wider audience who may not be coming to it for that will watch the film, go, hey, this was incredibly funny and really awesome. And if they've never encountered Oscar Wilde before, then I think that's a really great introduction. So hats off to this film because I think it is really, really well done. But how do you feel about
I
how it's
totally
treated?
agree with you, Andrew. I think that's a really, really good point. And especially as a first introduction, if you haven't come across any Oscar Wilde before, this is a fantastic introduction. And it makes you want to go read it, I feel. If I hadn't read it before, that would be wonderful. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And you're right. The movie is a bit more farcical in its tone than the writing, but it actually complements us very well. And I think I was thinking about a lot of the actors as well. That it in a way it's a good thing that they have used sort of actors we know for being very serious, like Colin Firth, Judi Dench, doing sort of Shakespeare's kind of thing and serious plays, because that means that you actually take the characters seriously. because it's very easy. If you put like a comedian or something in a role like this, it becomes a little too farcical almost. But because they had kind of used,
Mm.
pardon the phrase, but proper actors who are you've known for something quite serious, it kind of works in that way because they're always put out a little bit. They're always on the edge of, he comes home with the ashes there of and then suddenly he's in the garden and he has to relate to that. And that there's always that slight edge on something very serious, and we're all going to be, oh dear, this has happened. And then suddenly there's that twist again. And it happens over and over and over again. And I think because of that, it's important that you have a character who can sort of, or an actor who can sort of keep the character steady and solid in a way. And I think they all do that brilliantly in their own way, in this sort of very whimsical, farcical kind of atmosphere.
Yes, agreed. And I think you're absolutely right about everything having more impact because of who it comes from. And yes, actually, no disrespect to any of the comedians they could have chosen, but yes, coming the farcical bits coming from serious actors whose characters are taking themselves quite seriously does ramp up the comedy value even more. It's very subtle, it's very beautifully done. And I'm glad you mentioned those bits that they've put in that aren't in the play. And it is the little jokes like the tattoo in the unfortunate place. And I love that the camera actually cuts to it when Gwendolyn realizes that the man she wants to marry is not actually called Ernest. And really tiny things like when she's driving in the car, when those two cyclists overtake her.
Just get out and walk. This is
Yeah, yeah. Especially as she looks quite, uncomfortable in the car because a certain spot is already a bit tender. So you can imagine that, she's keeping it together, but her mood is not improved when she rocks up to the house and who should she see there but Cecily.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Very
and who is
pretty
this
walk.
person?
Oh, exactly. And Andrew, we mustn't forget there are a couple of cameos as well that are kind of important we meet in the countryside.
Yes, yeah. Trying to think, who shall I start with when we get out there? Because
Because I actually kind of enjoyed Miss Prism as the very sort of tied up governess.
yes, yeah, and Dr. Chaz. Sorry, I was struggling to remember Dr. Chasuble's
Yes,
name. It fell out of my mind for a second.
he has a very small role, but he's very sweet and likable.
He does. I like the trope of the well-meaning and generally quite harmless, parson. It's quite a well-used one. But Chasuble is so sweet. I do like Prism. I love the like a lot of the other characters, Miss Prism's guarding this, fortress of respectability and then by the end of it we learn that she's authored a three-part novel of more than revolting sentimentality and lost a baby.
And lost the baby, by the way. Yes, which is kind of yeah, not good for a governess. Really.
Did you laugh when Colin Firth throws himself at her and goes, "Mother, I mean."
He's doing, hang on here. I think there are a few people. I'm not. And then that cut back to Lady Bracknell, who's knowing, of course, that this was her sister's child. They
Mm.
lost, and she's the one. She realizes she's the key. She can tell him who he really is. I don't want mean to be inquisitive, but do you mind telling me who I am?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
she uses the handbag as well, and she's quite happy. At first, she's quite happy getting it back. Oh, I thought I lost this. This was quite an inconvenience. Thank you.
Oh, that is so Miss Prism, isn't it? These momentous events are happening around her. It's like, oh yeah, my bag. I've been looking everywhere for that. It's been 30 years.
No, that's wonderful. No, they're really good. They're really good character, and I love that we're staying in the same place most of the time, but we're kind of moving about. So we're in the garden, in the park. We're upstairs. We're on the balcony. and down, the women moving down the stairs, and so we kind of end up in different places in the house, and the setting sort of shift, and we have that little pre-dinner piano thing with both of them. And so I love how we're moving about the house, and the settings is sort of changing along the way. As
Yes. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned the moving with the piano because that song, I gather the words were written by Oscar Wilde. I think I could be wrong about that, but music might have been a more I don't think he did anything with it.
I do, but I think you could be right. That was he did poetry, so it probably was his lyrics.
Yeah, I think they set it to music and included it, which I thought was quite a nice touch. And I like the sheer ridiculousness of the poor. So again, this really, misty-eyed view of that. No, none of the servants actually say what they're really thinking, even though some of them look quite amused while they're lugging this heavy piano while Algie's trying to play it.
See them. And again, when Jack slash Ernest is running up the stairs to go into the little room to find the bag, he passes a three or four servants on the way who are just sort of standing there looking, going, what's
Master's
going
gone
on?
mad again.
So you see them, but you don't really hear from them.
Yes, well, which was a wonderful Victorian trope anyway. But yeah, because yes, it's almost a pity they took the gardener out in terms of not giving him lines. But I was glad that you see him in the background. So at least it's a nod to his presence. He didn't really need to be in, but it's just one of those things.
But you're
But
right, it does have lines actually in the
yeah.
written part of the play.
Yeah, but they did restore two of Oscar Wilde's own, I'll call them deleted scenes to put a modern twist on them. One of them I'd known about for a while, but the other was a bit of a surprise. So I'd known for a long time that Oscar Wilde had written the very short Savoy scene where, the two walk out without paying, and Algernon says, "Aren't you going to pay?" I make a point of never paying at the Savoy, which is great. I loved that scene. It was so great to see it in the movie. The other one, which I did not know about until yesterday, thank you, Wikipedia, the scene where the debt collectors turn up to take Algie away, well, Algie Ernest away, and there's that brilliant bit where he goes, "Well, I can't pay this. I'm a gentleman. I don't have any money," and the solicitor says, "Well, normally, sir, in my experience, it is the relations who pay."
I didn't know that. I did know about the Savoy scene because I do remember that, but I didn't know about the debt collectors.
Yeah, no, I can see why they were both dropped from the play because the debt collectors only make sense if you see them walking out of the Savoy without paying. Because I did notice when he opens his little ledger, it's on Savoy headed paper, and then urgent payment required, and
Yes.
several £100.
Oh dear God. No, that was so funny. That was so funny. I was actually wondering, Andrew, do you think, because in a way this is timeless, this comedy or play, isn't it? But do you think it could have been, I don't know if we would have seen anything like this written for a modern audience?
Oh, that is a very interesting question.
Maybe not in the same way.
It might not age well into the present day, unless you aim it at people from, I'll call them traditional societies. However, I could see his play lasting totally unaltered into a 1920s setting where, everyone is dressed a bit. But you could replace the, or maybe no, you wouldn't even have to do that because even in the roaring 20s, new money is still trying to marry into title and there's this whole actually, if anything, I think in the 20s, the obsession with respectability intensified because in the aftermath of the war, the lower orders were thinking more about equality, and some of them were even going communist.
True, true.
So the last thing you wanted was no, 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 we've got to properly prop up the system. Yeah, but I think the humor is certainly timeless because we sort of get the period. I love that although I know I think it was first performed in 1895, 96 or something like that. somewhere in the late 1890s. There's something about the humor in it that people can sort of see the props and what people are wearing, and go, oh, it's that sort of a time. But actually, this is really funny,
Yes,
and I think that's where the timelessness is, Oscar Wilde's wit,
yes,
and certain universal truths like women calling each other a great many things before they call each other sister.
yes. So right. And maybe that's also what makes it timeless. It's that play around things, norms, social norms that have kind of already always existed. And there is an element of the ridiculous to it. I mean, I think Algie has that little point about, the whole point about romance is that is the uncertainty, and the moment that the uncertainty has gone, it kind of becomes boring.
Yes, yes, and he was probably speaking for a great many people who'd been herded into unhappy marriages at the time. Yes, because even if the courtship phase is incredibly exciting, yeah, once you start noticing the spots on the bathroom mirror, it just, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. No, so I think there is maybe also something timeless about making fun of social norms because there are lots of things in every single day and age that is just ridiculous. And
Mm.
we know it's ridiculous and we make fun of it, but we have to follow along anyway because that's what it's done or that's how it's always been in society. And we kind of do that and we follow the rules and everything. But I think we sometimes need to be reminded of the ridiculousness of certain things in society and in our daily lives.
Yes, yes. I mean, the one of the best sum ups is a really random line Lady Bracknell has about we've already missed 5 or 6 trains, and any more, and will be a cause of comment on the platform. Like, and this is a problem. Why?
Yes. Yes.
But
No,
I thought it was a beautiful line because, yes, in a society where people worry about so many little things, yes, and she's clearly taking this so seriously. And every time she brings some minor social infraction back to the French Revolution, it's like, I I really don't think it's that bad. Oh, nonsense. We're that close from descending into anarchy. Like, oh, okay.
and we all know how that went.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So, Mr. Worthing, a man should either know everything or know nothing. What do you know?
Fantastic line as well. I think
Yeah.
it's
There was another good one. Was it what other question does she ask him in that interview? Because there's another one that I've always found.
about yeah, his income and finds that satisfactory, so that's good.
Yeah.
And about his yeah, the whole thing about his parents. And you better produce a parent, I suggest.
Yes, yes. One who's not a bag, probably.
Um, yeah, that was before the handbag discussion. And then what else did she ask him? He explains how he has a house in the country with land, but most of his income is in investments,
Hmm.
and that's good. Uh, oh, do you smoke?
That's the one. Yes, yes, yes. And when
Man
he
should
says
have
yes,
a
I could.
hobby. A man should have a hobby. And I love how that's the very first question. And she just sits there with her little, and the two ladies there with their own little notepads. And do you smoke? And everyone looks up. Yes, I confess I do.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a brutal interrogation. And I did love how they added a photographer at the part just so he can look like a rabbit in the headlights and be really, really discomforted by the whole thing.
Horrible. And then that little bell, she's sort of reaching out. On the other hand, and then she goes,
Yes.
"Oh, it's there."
Yeah, do you know that should be a scarier moment for him than it comes across in this one. But I think again that's the film trying to go for the gentle humor angle. But I still see him look very worried as she's reaching for the bell.
I knew, and that little sort of, I knew there was something, as if, I clearly spotted there was something.
Yes. As for all your apparent respectability, something about you.
And he tries to, when even when he's explaining that he was found at Victoria Station in a handbag, he's even trying to push it up by saying that the gentleman who found him had a first class ticket
Yes, dear, oh dear old Mr. Cardew, yes.
to Worthing, or yeah, he was going to Worthing, wasn't he? Or
Yes, yes, yep, he was heading to Worthing.
oh, bless. I was wondering also, Andrew, do you think there is an appeal, maybe also in this idea of having two selves, that you can kind of live two lives, maybe?
Oh, well, yes, I think there is actually because it touches people on so many levels. I mean, there's the comedic Jekyll and Hyde part to all this. There's also, we all have our insecurities and we worry that there's as human beings that there's a bit of a difference between our real self and the self we project to others. Um, I think there's a lot of people would be nodding sagely at that, I feel. And actually, more directly, there are quite a few of us out there who do have, images they project of themselves when they're out and about, and then they're a very different person behind closed doors.
I'm
And
wondering if we're not using social media to Bunbury a little bit.
well, I think we are. Actually, that is a really, really good point. And touching on your earlier question, how would the importance of being earnest work if you involved social media in the script?
Oh,
That if you wanted something truly incongruous that would really mess with people's heads, how about having the set dressing and the costumes all late Victorian, but they're tapping away on phones?
oh, I love that idea.
That would just be so weird.
I love that idea. But you're right. We kind of, I guess we are also different personalities depending on, are we at work? Are we at home? Are we with our family? Are we with friends? Are we, what's the context in which we're with people? We kind of maybe do have a little bit of two selves or more sometimes.
Yes. And there's a question that I think is really pertinent for John slash Ernest, because I know Algie uses Bunbury more as a pretext to not be there when he doesn't have to be. But because the focus is so much more on the two sides of John's life, I do wonder whether at any point he starts wondering who is the real him.
Yes, or that's an excellent point, actually. And
Yeah.
which one of his two selves really is he in his own?
Yes.
Yes,
I mean, I hope for Gwendolyn's sake it's Ernest because that's the one she's seen the whole time. And if Jack is terribly different, I mean, he's a lot more serious at home. She might be in for a bit of a disappointment if it turns out the reality is Jack. Nice guy though he is, and clearly a responsible fellow, but I think she's much more in for the fun-loving Ernest.
yes, yes. And he is different when he's earnest.
Yes.
There is a change in personality somehow. Um, oh, that's a good point, Andrew, actually.
Yeah. Do you think maybe Ernest is the real him? Because he probably feels a bit repressed when he's having to be the dutiful landowner,
Yeah,
facing up to his responsibilities. And
I think maybe somehow Ernest has given Jack a way out of all of that. Um, and there is also, even though he pretends that he's quite fond of going into London and having a laugh and playing roulette and all of that, there is also a tiredness that comes in because that's kind of what he's doing whenever he's there. So there
Mm,
is maybe a little bit of a yearning for something a bit more meaningful. Um,
yes.
at some point, and he sees Gwendolyn and marriage and the prospect of that, maybe as his way out of that.
Yes, when it comes to Gwendolyn, he certainly is quite the romantic.
Yes,
And it comes over a little bit more convincing than Algernon's incredibly rapid, like, oh, I love you. And yeah, at least they've had time to he's had time to get to know Gwendolyn and they've built
yes,
something up between them. So much so that Lady Bracknell is suspicious whenever she sees him in the room.
yes, yes. Exactly, exactly. No, the Ernest slash Algie and Cecily relationship is much more hastened in a way.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I do you have a favorite character in this play, Jane? I know that's probably quite a hard question.
You know, oh, they all complement each other. I actually do like both in her own light, Lady Blacknell and her wit and her uh, sort of total strange ability of seeing those, as you said, those small little things that shouldn't really matter, like taking the later train or stuff like that. That's absolutely wonderful. She has some wonderful lines, but I gotta say that the best lines probably belongs to Algernon. And I do love that he is cynical and at the same time he plays the game with all his charm and everything, his mischievous demeanor and all of it. So he totally knows how to play the game, but at the same time, this his cynicism also shows that he kind of knows how farcical this is. And I love that about him.
Yeah, no, and he is a very lovable rogue. And I do like all the escape scenes they put into the film when he's trying to outrun his creditors. And of course, it being Victorian Britain, they're terribly well dressed and very polite. "Oh, we need a word, sir. I've got to talk to you about your debts."
Fight in their chase as well. Yes. Oh, do you have a favorite character, Andrew?
Oh, well, having unfairly sprung that on you, it's a very difficult one. I like the four main protagonists equally. They're way up there. But I do have a hidden favorite off to the side, and it is the long-suffering character of Algernon's butler, Lane,
Oh, yes.
who I think is so brilliantly played by Edward Fox. He is the best of British butlers, just totally impassive, and even when he's complaining, there is also the small matter of my wages. And he never breaks it. I even love the bit when Algernon sneaks in and they're all having that lovely, their little, servants musical session. He just chucks his hat into Lane's instrument, says, "I hope I'm not interrupting," and then poor Lane has to go and fix him a drink. Um,
Oh,
yeah, but
no matter what hits him, he's just, yes, sir.
yes, no, no cucumbers, sir, not even for ready money. And the one that really stands out because he is a man of very few lines, but the my all-time favorite of the Lane classics is when Algernon finishes practicing and asks him what he thought, and he just said, "I didn't think it polite to listen, sir."
That line is just perfect. That line is just perfect.
Yeah, and I think in aside from the gardener, Lane for me is the person who is the voice of the lower orders, who are generally behaving themselves and doing as they're told, but very obviously thinking the upper classes are completely insane. But it's a job, so I'm just going
It's,
to go with it.
that he's another example of someone who's just playing the game, just keep
Yeah.
your head low and carry on and yeah, it will be fine.
Yeah, and I like it how it hints at the special relationship that butlers then, as I think now, because they still exist as a thing, remarkably,
Yes,
that kind of highly formalized but nonetheless very close relationship you have with your master, where you do have the liberty to, insert a gentle insult into, "I didn't think it polite to listen, sir," knowing you can get away with it because
no,
you have that
exactly,
connection.
exactly. And knowing how to walk that thin line between
Yeah.
actually delivering a comment like that and still be incredibly polite.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. He's a fantastic character. He really is.
Yeah, yeah, I do like Lane. I can't quite put my finger on why, but I find him a very likable character.
He is fantastic. He is fantastic. Andrew, what else do we need to touch on here?
Oh, well, I know that you rightly set great store by this sort of thing. The soundtrack overall, which I think was composed by Charlie Mole for this film. What did you think of the musical background? Not just the song, which I can't get out of my head now.
Good, actually. I liked it. I think it was well used, and I think as well as with the changing of settings, you use the soundtrack as well to create that atmosphere. So when we are in London, it's sort of more festive, and it's faster, and it's more sort of high paced, and then immediately when our characters come together, like Jack and Gwendolyn, and when Algie meets cousin Cecily for the first time, and that you get that almost over the top romantic night kind of setting to it. And I think both the cinematography and the music complements each other so well there in creating those little atmosphere shifts. I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was well done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like it. I think it sets the tone and the pace really well, and almost tragically, like all the best soundtracks in films, they're at their most successful when you barely notice them, which is a pity. I did actually try listening to the soundtrack after I'd watched the film just to get a
Well
bit more
done.
appreciation for it, because yeah, no, I thought it all came together. It bound it all together really nicely.
Oh, I think I want to do that as well, because you're right. In those moments where it's really good, you don't notice it, and I suppose that's the point of a good soundtrack. Really, it has to
Yeah.
into the plot and the storyline.
Yeah, sad for someone as a composer, but
But in a way, as we talked about before, Andrew, we've also seen films where the soundtrack is almost so good that that's the only thing you really notice.
yes, yes, and there have been incredible soundtracks attached to really quite appalling films.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, no, I will name names. So, Mel Gibson's The Patriot was an absolutely god-awful film, but the soundtrack to it was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Really,
Oh, yeah.
really superb musical score.
But there's also for some reason, some months ago now, I was rewatching The Mission, which is an incredible film. But the soundtrack was almost, I knew about the soundtrack before the film.
Yes, yes. Was it Vangelis who did that
It
soundtrack?
was, yes, it was The Mission. No,
Oh no, I'm thinking of 1492. I'm
yes,
so sorry. It's
sorry, I got them mixed up as well. Yeah, no, that was Morricone.
yeah,
That little Gabriel Sabot thing. But that soundtrack kind of lived its own life next to the film. I mean, the film was amazing, but sometimes there is a soundtrack that kind of just grows in its own right.
yes, yeah. And I thought it was good that the music was good because, of course, visually speaking, music plays such an important part in the importance of being earnest, whether it's Algernon bashing away at the piano and or all again, not quite in the original play, but I like how they sprinkled all the fairy figures with
Yes.
lutes and things.
And then whenever there was one of those moments, you got those little and the long dresses and the long floating hair,
Yes.
overly romantic pre-Raphaelites kind of.
Yeah, I do love how they bring that into collision in the film, where Algernon suddenly finds himself in the middle of Cecily's fantasy, and he sort of looks down at the armor he's suddenly wearing and goes, "All right."
Oh, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. Guys, let us know your favorite scene or quote or line or whatever. That probably a lot we've forgotten, but that would be wonderful just to hear what you think.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Do add comments, questions. I mean, there's so much to say about most of Oscar Wilde's work. In fact, actually, guys, is this your favorite Oscar Wilde play? I mean, it certainly is for me. I love this one above all his other work.
It is for me as well. I have to say that there was just something about this that made it, I don't know, but just a level above anything else. Uh,
Yeah.
Maybe the wit, maybe the writing, maybe those over the top, over romantic lines all the time. I don't know, but you connect so quickly with the characters. It's so well done.
Yes, yeah, and it's a tribute to his amazing skill as a writer and just as a great wit. I think what really carries this is that peculiar Oscar Wilde magic that he
Yeah.
brings to well, basically brings to everything he did for the most part. And
That's a brilliant point, Andrew, because you know how when you read some books, you're not in doubt that this is Oscar Wilde. You kind of know
Hmm.
that if you hadn't been told before you read it or before you watched it, you kind of know. There's just that style to him.
Yeah, yeah. As you said, lots of use of words, but very elegant and
Yes.
very light. For despite the heavy wordage, he's very light and easy and just so funny.
And you
Uh,
don't want to change it. You don't want to change a thing about it. You want that over the top sort of thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. But no, it was a real pleasure revisiting this one. And I don't know, have we said everything there is to say about this? We haven't deprived anyone of airtime, have we?
Is it Algernon as well who has that brilliant line about the truth is rarely pure and never simple? Is that Algernon?
Oh, yes, it might well be. Yes.
It's one of those lines where you go, oh, I have to think about that one. Hang on.
Yeah, because I know it's in there somewhere.
Here you go. Actually, that's a good point. Yes. No, but
Yes, yes, it's absolutely right.
he has some really wonderful lines. Yeah, no, this is just there's a reason why this has survived for so long. It's a masterpiece, this one. It's a little gem.
Um, yes, and why I would happily watch it again tomorrow, today, because it never gets old. Probably wouldn't watch it every day for a week, but you know what I mean. It's
We talked about Ernest and that name and the play on the name, but actually the other names are wonderful as well because there's something overly feminine about Cecily and Gwendolyn and they're sort of over the to Algernon. They're sort of over the top names, all of them, very recognizable. But
yeah,
there is something wonderful about that as well. So no, there's a wonderful use of names in all of this as well, and even the slightly bottomed up Miss Prism. That's the kind of name a governess would have, isn't it?
it is. Yes, it's very sort of yeah. And actually, it's funny because it does play on sound. Prism and prison sound awfully similar if you say them fast. And when I think about how trapped Cecily feels, it's a bit like, yeah, yes, my governess is my prison.
Exactly, exactly.
Even if she's a very well-meaning one.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, no, this was a real treat, Andrew. Thanks for suggesting this one. This was
Oh,
fantastic. And guys, let us know your favorite scene, favorite quote, favorite character. Which one did you like the most? And what really is the importance of being earnest?
ooh, that looked like all metaphysical questions. We could spend quite a long time on that one, but yes, good one, Jane. I like
Are
it.
you truly earnest? Are you yourself on social media, or is that where you are the least earnest? Or what sort of which
Hmm.
one of yourselves, your many selves, is the most earnest?
Yes, yes. And when it all gets a bit much, are you tempted to just do a Bunbury?
We do a Bunbury. Yeah, we do a Bunbury. Yeah, yeah. And remember, always have at least one parent because
It helps.
to lose one is a misfortune. To lose two, just carelessness. Yeah.
Yes.
And never ever be left in a handbag.
Yeah, yeah. Because while forming an alliance with a piece of luggage might not be as disadvantageous as it sounds, maybe best to just keep away.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, lots of life lessons there.
Yes, yes. It is just like just don't let it descend into the worst excesses of the French Revolution, because we all know how that little experiment ended.
Definitely, definitely. Oh, this has been wonderful, Andrew.
Likewise, Jane, thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to do this one. It was absolutely brilliant. And as always, really awesome to see you.
Fantastic. And thanks, Guy, for listening. And let us know. Let us know your favorite Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care, everyone.